I've never seen giving money to be so much fun. For what a great cause. What a pleasure for me to be here in your presence. I know I'm among kindred spirits. Anybody who is as enthusiastic about NatureBridge as this crowd is, you know, I love you. People ask me sometimes where the best place to go diving is, and I say, almost anywhere 50 years ago. Actually, it needs to be a little bit sooner than that, because by 1971, when NatureBridge came into existence, already there was evidence that the world, the natural world, the systems that keep us alive, that make our existence possible, they're already in trouble. But it was that view of Earth from space in 1968 when the then young astronaut William Anders looked out the window of the Apollo 8 spacecraft and saw the world. And it's blue. And it's where everything that we care about exists. I mean, you look up at the stars, and I hope you do tonight, just if the skies allow seeing the stars. It's a beautiful universe. But there's no place like home. There's no place like Earth. It started with rocks and water. But there are a lot of places in the universe that have rocks and water. What makes Earth special? It's life. Take away life and you have rocks and water. It's a living planet. I don't know why that isn't obvious to everyone. I know it's obvious to you. Earth would not be habitable but for the rest of life on Earth. And it has taken a very long time for us to get to where we are, a planet that works in our favor. Like 4.5 billion years. It's taken us about maybe 4.5 centuries. Think about the 1500s when humans began to really start to reach out and cover the planet with our explorations. I mean, we've always been explorers. Little kids start out as explorers, always asking who, what, why, when, where, how. It's natural. It's to be human is to want to explore. But go back to, let's say, 1500, there were only 500 million people. 500 million. By 1800, there were 1 billion. When I came along, 2 billion. 1980, 4 billion. Now there are about 8 billion of us, and we keep going. Our prosperity seems really cool. Here we are, one species. Never could imagine that we could reach this level of what by the numbers would seem to be prosperity. But at what cost? At what cost? Nature has paid the cost. We think of nature as natural resources there for us to use. And we've done a really good job of taking from nature to make our 8 billion people prosperous. But starting back in the 1970s with that view of Earth and looking out into the universe beyond, it's pretty clear this is it. Whatever there is, our past, our present, and certainly our future is within this space. Yes, some people wish to go off to other places like the moon, Mars, or some distant, as yet unidentified place to set up housekeeping beyond Earth, to migrate And maybe someday we can, but only if we make peace with this planet. And we're starting to do that as a recognition of this critical moment in time when we know what could not be known before. We can see what could not be seen before, partly because of the technology that has lofted us high in the sky, and I'm so glad that the technology exists to dive in. I want to dive in with you, to go in the other direction, to explore the other part of this planet that is beyond where most people have even now ventured. I love it that there are millions of divers who've taken the plunge and gone beneath the surface to explore our fellow creatures and get to know them up close and personal. Most people, even now, unfortunately, only get to see most sea creatures as something with lemon slices and butter, or, fish and chips, or, whatever it is. That's changing. Looking at the part of the planet, the blue part, on the land, I mean the rivers, lakes, and streams, but especially the ocean. All life needs water, and 97% of it is ocean. That really translates to about 97% of the living space on the planet. It's where most of life on Earth actually exists, out there in the ocean. It's a big thought. I didn't even dream of such thoughts when I was a child. I did not know that fish were the most common, most abundant vertebrates on the planet. We think about mammals, we think about lizards, think about salamanders, we certainly think about birds. But you take all the other vertebrates, put them together, and you don't have as many species as there are species of fish. Curiously, we tend to think of fish as something mostly to either turn into money or turn into something to eat. And if we can't, then they're regarded as underutilized. It's how we have looked at nature, generally speaking. Nature is there for us to use. And for the most part, we haven't accounted for it properly. Fish, for example, have an accounting base of 0 when they're alive. They only have a value when we take them to market. Dead fish we can sell. Dead fish we can eat. Live fish, well, there is a market for aquarium fish, and a lot of people are currently keeping pets, aquarium fish. But even so, it's just our sense of what's valuable. I think I'm in the company of a lot of individuals who have come to see nature differently, to value nature. First of all, for its own sake, but most of all, for our sake. We need the diversity of life, all of the creatures that make Earth habitable. We're relative newcomers. Where do you start for when humans existed? Some say, well, 10,000 years ago, that's when civilization really began to get up and running in a most obvious way as our numbers began to increase. But you can date who we are as a species maybe back 1 million years, even trace back further than that. But when you think, how long have fish been around? Think about it. About 400 million years. Sharks, bony fish, and prior to that, all of the invertebrates. The greatest diversity of life is actually out there in the ocean. And we're just beginning to explore this planet, this blue planet, this extraordinary planet where so far we've enumerated on the order of maybe 2 million species. We're just one. And How many species actually are there? We don't know. We can have an educated guess based on how much of the land and how much of the ocean we have yet to explore, especially the ocean. And we've been on the land for all of our history. We're air breathers, we're terrestrial. But when you start lifting the lid on the ocean and looking at who lives there, we're talking about a smaller number that are known than are known from the land and from fresh water. But the estimates are that the number in the ocean have to exceed by a lot. We've only looked at maybe 10% of the ocean with the same degree of effort that we have applied, even to rainforests. It's exciting. I mean, this is the greatest era of exploration ever in the history of our species. It's also the greatest era of exploitation. We have yet to learn that we really need to take care of the natural systems that underpin our existence, to really care for them as if our lives depend on it, because they do. And as we explore, as we go deeper into the ocean, I've had the privilege, and it is a privilege. I feel so lucky to have come along when I did, that the era of access to the sea, Jacques Cousteau with scuba, the industries that really demanded that, you know, we have a reason to exploit the ocean, but to do that, you have to explore, you have to know what's there. So, 1979, I found myself walking around on the ocean floor about 1,200 feet beneath the surface off the shore of Hawaii near Oahu. I wish every one of you could do this. I wouldn't use that suit anymore because there are better ways to do it. This is muscle power. But it was for me a gift of being able to see in real time what I'd only seen trapped in a net before from the deep sea. Creatures that don't occur up in the shallow coral reefs. Creatures with lights down their side, beautiful animals that are really abundant, but we have yet to go there. So I really share with NatureBridge the concept. It isn't good enough as a scientist, as an explorer, to get out there and discover new things. Think about astronauts up in the sky. Do they come back and just keep all the news to themselves? Don't tell anybody? No, they want everybody to say, you can't believe what Earth looks like from space. I feel the same way. When I go down in the ocean, I want to come back and say, everybody, you can't believe what it's like down there. It's extraordinary. It's full of life. You look from the surface, it looks all the same from the surface. Even with a face mask, even in 2 feet of water, let alone 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 or 37,000 feet, 7 miles down, there's life all the way down. It's a living ocean, not just water and rocks. And it's that living ocean that generates oxygen, captures carbon, distributes energy, governs climate and weather, maintains the stability, the habitability of Earth. And I really thank you with NatureBridge for taking the kids and getting them acquainted, land and sea, life, all of it connected. One extraordinarily complicated, connected system, and we're a part of it. But we're a very disruptive part of it in the 20th century and now in the 21st. It's the first time when perhaps we have a combination of things. The greatest era of learning has been perhaps during my lifetime, during the lifetime of NatureBridge, the last half century or so. We have learned so much, so fast, about the skies above, about ourselves, who lives within us, our biome, what makes Earth special, what makes the soil special, all the creatures that function within the roots of trees, things that we didn't even know how to ask the questions 50 years ago. It's 50 years from now that we should be thinking about and investing in the kids who 50 years from now will either be really excited about what all of us have done to keep Earth safe for their future, or they will be really cross. Because now we know what nobody could know 50 years ago. Think about what we've learned. Think about what life was like in the 1970s, the 80s. And think about now the technology that gives us the power of communication, the power of understanding what we didn't have enough pieces of the puzzle to be able to see what is now seeable, knowable, to connect the ocean, to connect nature with climate change. It isn't just a physical process. It's a biological process. I mean, Earth is a geochemical miracle with the emphasis on the bio, the living planet. So, going back not so long ago, but when I think about it, what we did not know when the Sustainable Seas expeditions, 5 years with the National Geographic, engaging kids, getting some CEOs, getting some teachers to go dive in beyond where scuba divers can go, beyond where you can go holding your breath, and to explore the counterpart of the national parks. I know, and I wholeheartedly endorse the concept that national parks are the best idea America ever had, or maybe people everywhere. Yay. But protecting those special places isn't enough if you just put a wrap around them. It helps. We need to safeguard whatever places remain that are still in pretty good condition, protecting the wild places, the old growth forests, the old growth deserts, the wild rivers, the wild whatever it is. But we have to share the view. You have to get people, especially kids, to know why it matters. Children, I mean, all of us, when we were born, what did you know when you were born? Nothing, except you were hungry, maybe, or you were cold, or you were warm, or whatever. You know the basics, but we learn. We learn from day one, and we keep learning. You should never stop. You should never stop exploring. But if we fail to give the best of what we know to our kids, and they grow up not knowing why nature matters, knowing that we are dependent on maintaining Earth as our life support system, then we really have lost the best chance we will ever have to have an enduring future for our species. Why is it that in school, even today, you learn your letters, you learn your numbers, you learn about human history? What about our place in the universe? That's what NatureBridge is achieving so effectively, filling that gap. Who are we? Where have we come from? Where might we be going? How do we fit in to the 2 million or so species that we know about, and maybe another times 10? Or we don't know how many other species there are, especially in the ocean. But we're finding new species in the cracks of cement in city streets, around the bark of trees. We're finding new species everywhere. We're beginning to know how to look in ways that we could not know, could not see until right about now. This is the best chance right now, armed with knowledge, and while nature still holds the planet in a state where we can breathe, But if you like to breathe, and most people kind of do, you can't take it for granted. Photosynthesis was one of the great miracles of biology. Earth didn't start out with photosynthesis. It took a couple billion years before green things started to generate oxygen, capture carbon, provide the food webs that made animal life possible. And it's still going on the land and certainly in the sea. But if you don't know that, you can't care. People can care. Well, really they can't if they don't know why they should. You can know and not care, but what you're doing and what I've been trying to do through various means with the National Geographic, the Sustainable Seas Expedition, taking some kids, taking their teachers, taking anybody we could catch, and giving them a chance to nip down into the ocean and see it from the inside out. And the technology now that exists to be able to go deeper, stay longer. We're just at the cusp of making available, like Hertz Renisub, why not? You can get into an airplane. I mean, most people have, I guess a lot of people in some parts of the world have not had the privilege of going up in the sky, but I dare say in this group, you have been high in the sky. I remember the first time I had a chance to look back from a Piper Cub that came to town. It was when I was 5 years old, and aviation was just in the beginning stages. We're there right now, the beginning stages of having access to the sea in ways that will enable us by seeing, knowing, maybe caring more than when you only know about life in the ocean when it's on your plate or in the market. So, I love the idea of taking people who've never been underwater, maybe as a diver, maybe as a snorkeler, but to actually get into a little submarine. This is the Minister of the Environment for Ecuador, which includes the Galapagos Islands. This was last July. We had a little submarine available to us called the Deep Sea that operates off the coast of South America, mostly from Cocos Island, but we brought it down to the Galapagos and invited the minister to take the plunge. He is a diver, but the idea of going down to about 1,000 feet where it gets dark, he was up for it. Are you? Anybody want to go down? Well, it was fun just being underwater where it's really dark. And think about this. Sunlight only penetrates to maybe 1,000 feet, a little more than that. Photosynthesis, you get some of it down where it's really almost completely dark, like being in the deepest forest. Not much sunlight gets down below that, but we were right at that edge, the twilight zone. And out of the darkness came this creature. Some of you may know the ocean sunfish, the mola mola. We think of them being up here near the surface because that's where we usually see them. But this one, about 1,000 feet down, whispered in the minister's ear. He'll never forget that. Just as the children that you bring to NatureBridge will never forget the experiences that you make available to them. Now, I love going out into the deep sea. I love going into a deep forest. I just savor the opportunity to be anywhere in nature or to find it, even in a city, in my backyard, wherever. We are embraced by nature no matter where we are. The air we breathe, the water we drink, whatever food we eat, it anchors back to the natural living planet that makes our existence possible. So while I'm doing everything I can just to get people to dive into the land and sea, freshwater, marine, trying to foster the technologies that will enable anybody, everybody, to gain access to the sea. These little subs are being built right now across the way in Alameda. It's my daughter and son-in-law, kind of a family affair. They're building little subs that can take 3 people, maybe you, but mainly the whole motivation is to get kids on board, to get them down at the earliest possible stage. Why not? There are now probably several hundred variations on the theme of submersibles out there. It's like the early days of aviation. Think 50 years from now, a group like this will be sharing their sea stories as well as their other explorations, because access is coming. I hope that someday you will get to be like the Minister of the Environment from Ecuador, to just get out there, down there. We have the best chance we will ever have right now through the idea, that best idea that America had, to embrace nature, the natural systems, with proactive protection. The national parks that got started early in the 20th century are now being mirrored by protection in the sea, our network of national marine sanctuaries. The network of protected areas in the Galapagos, around the world. It's an idea that's overdue, quite frankly, because if we had started 50 years ago, we would have a much better chance of safeguarding our blue home. And from here until whenever, it's going to get harder unless we start right now to put on the accelerators. And I saw it happening tonight. You are putting on the acceleration to amp up, scale up protection, and engaging not just the kids, but finding the kid in everyone. You see it on the face of the Minister of the Environment? and to go from where we are right now. I mean, it's a surprise to a lot of people to say, okay, so how much of the ocean, how much of the land is protected? How much should be protected to safeguard the earth? Well, this year, nations have come together to pledge 30% of the land, 30% of the ocean. It's a nice theme, by 2030, 7 years from now. It's ambitious because only 15% of the land is safeguarded proactively in national parks, in protected areas globally. How much of the ocean? 3%. 3%. That means we have 10 times the amount that is safe in the way that land is safe. I mean, national parks, you tend to not shoot the birds or kill the bears, but in the ocean, that 3% really is defined by places where even the fish are safe. So, 2 minutes. We're almost there. Almost. Let me go. Okay? Can we go back quickly? Oh. There. All right. So, food chains in the sea. The key there is not to be part of the food chain. Watch it. It's like what you see on the land with birds flying, and they are eating the insects, and some things eat the birds. This is the same in the ocean. And now a lot of other stuff is in the ocean, thanks to us, that this is new in the last 50 years. Really, when you think about it, plastics did not exist when I was a kid. Now they infuse the ocean, they infuse waters everywhere. They're part of our existence. But it's the kids who are coming to fore. Cause for hope. It's the kids who are saving sharks. saving turtles. We are really investing, as we should, in the next generation of guardians, of champions, of those who see with new eyes the world, looking at plankton on T-shirts, celebrating life in the ocean. No child left dry. Thank you for all you are doing to make a difference, to secure our past, our present, and especially our future. Thank you.
Now, you know you're not allowed to leave yet. We have to hand you your award. Okay. Sarah? She gets to hand it to you.
Thank you, Dr. Earle. You know, I always thought they called you your deepness because you spent so much time underwater. And tonight I learned that they call you your deepness because of your wisdom. So I thank you for that. Tonight, we're honored to present you with the inaugural Environmentor Award from NatureBridge. Your work over so many years in marine science has inspired our curriculum from really the beginning. And tonight we have a chance to say thank you for that. Thank you for inspiring our students, for helping them, like our Student of the Year tonight, dream big dreams and put those dreams into action. And we can't thank you enough for being the trailblazer that you've been, for being the spokesperson for our oceans and for our world. So we present this to you with gratitude and hopefulness. Thank you.
And it's blue.
So one little story, Dr. Earle, that I'm not sure if you know, but you mentioned astronaut Bill Anders, who took the photo Earthrise. You've seen that iconic photo of the moon in the foreground and the Earth in the background. One of the NatureBridge founders of our board in 1971 was none other than Bill Anders. So it's amazing how this circle continues. Thank you, Dr. Earle. Thank you, Sam Boren, our NatureBridge National Board Chair.